Hi, let's understand what are user stories. I'm sure you would have come across the term user stories multiple times. It's one of the most common, most used, and most abused term. And in this session, we're going to understand what are user stories, how to write one, and how to make sure that you're writing the perfect user story. So let's begin. Well, imagine user stories as a reminder to converse with your customers regularly. In other words, you are putting a reminder to perform just in time analysis about your users. It is important to break up every epic into user stories. User stories could be a single feature or a small group of features. Epics are large and, if not broken down, can make the product development process haphazard and inefficient because uh, they will not be. So, typically, epics are so big that they cannot be done in one single sprint. And if you try to force fit them into a single sprint, typically the sprints will never complete, and you'll always be in this tussle that the work that we're estimating we are never able to finish, right? It is always easier to build a larger thing from smaller building blocks. So imagine how you use a small blocks in Lego to build a bigger structure. So similarly, multiple user stories put together can build a epic. Very simply put, a user story is a short description of a feature, that is the what, described from the point of view of a person who needs the new capability, which is typically a customer. Okay, and it's always given when the it's always written and mentioned from the point of view of a customer. Now, at times you would use a user persona. So if you have already worked on user persona and you have a user persona with the name, let's say Angelica, or let's say Jeff or Pankaj, then you can, instead of using just as a customer, you can actually use the persona itself, because different personas will may have different perspective about the same capability that they're expecting. Okay, typically stories are very slim and very high level artifacts. What that means is they don't go very deep, they are very high level. They will not go into that, okay, I need a accordion menu here, or I need a button here, or I need a color here. They'll simply say I need this functionality. Okay. um, and these are smaller than the other artifact like epic stories. So epics, as you can imagine, in the epic and stories, stories are contained within epics, right? So for example, so there are some user stories example that I've written here, of a university blackboard portal. So as a professor, I wish to upload grades of students so that I do not waste lecture time. So as a professor, okay, the professor becomes the customer or the persona. I would not call it persona, sorry. It's a customer. It's an archetype. Okay. So as a professor, I wish to upload grades of students. That is what I want to achieve. Upload grades of students, so that the reasoning is I do not waste lecture time. As a student, I wish to access my semester timetables so that I can plan my day from any place at any time. So you can see there's a structure to this. As a dash, I wish to dash so that I can dash. Okay. And this is a very good example of user story, because each of these activities, these of these tasks or bundle of tasks or functionality is contained, self-contained. When you say wish to upload, that basically means I have to divide this into user tasks, or sorry, developer tasks. I will have to create so developer will have to create one method or one functionality to upload grades in the form of an Excel sheet or a CSV sheet. Number two, he will have to create some front end to display them. And number three, he will have to create some sort of a notification or email trigger which will go to the students. If that email trigger is already enabled, then he will have to plug it, or he'll have to connect with that notification system that already exists, so that when the grades are uploaded, each student gets his grade on the email. But the notification feature that I just mentioned is actually not mentioned in this story, right? So in the entire epic, if I was creating an epic, perhaps I would add the notification as an important thing for me, right? But that will become a separate story. As a professor, I wish to notify all the students about their grades so that they do not miss out on improving their grades as soon as possible. So that becomes a separate story altogether. Uh, the next thing is to understand how to write good user stories. Okay, how do you get a knack of knowing that okay, this is a self-contained good user story which can be completed in a sprint? So there's an acronym that a good story is investable. That is INVEST. It's investable. Okay. So what makes a story investable? You simply look at is this user story independent? That is, it is able to stand by itself. It doesn't require any other feature, any other additional requirement. It should not have any dependency on another user story. Okay. This helps tremendously in prioritization because you don't have to start wondering about, okay, if I have to prioritize this user story one because it has a dependency on something else, so I need to get that done first. Is the user story negotiable? That is, can we can we identify the impact of this user story? Can we negotiate the user story in a qualitative manner? So your teams should be able to negotiate the content of a user story to refine it further. Okay, and this is possible if it is not intertwined or dependent on other user stories. So for example, if I just say I want to, as a customer, as a business owner, I want to increase the revenue. I mean, that's not negotiable. That businesses exist because they want to increase revenues, right? The next is the user story valuable? So after completion of the user story, does part of the customer problem get resolved, right? Does it create any kind of impact? Is the user story estimable? That is, can we make an estimate? Can you use some metrics to estimate the effort needed to complete the user story? Right? Can you estimate the outcome? So that is when you can actually do an effort versus estimate comparison. And then is the user story small? That is, it is containable within a certain sprint length. It will not spill over the sprint. And finally, is the user story testable? Can you really test the user story? Right? So it's a good reminder whenever you're in doubt, or when, at least in the early days, make sure that you're ticking off all the boxes. Right? So this is just a quick reminder that independent, the user stories are not dependent on each other. This way the user stories can be developed in any sequence. The good user stories are negotiable, so stakeholders and other team members should be able to negotiate the details of the user story. It is valuable because the users or customers should get some value from the story. It should not be just a vanity thing. It should be estimable, it should be small, and then finally it is testable. Let me give you an example. So user stories, as a customer of this website, I wish to be able to pay through the one click option so that I do not have to waste time filling out card details. So what is wrong with the about statement? Firstly, what type of customer should be allowed this? A new customer, a returning customer, a customer returning after the first visit, a loyal customer? There's no mention of that. When should card details be saved? At first visit, after a few visits, transactions, what is it? So if you rewrite this, as an existing customer of this website, ordering through a desktop and has already provided card details in my first visit, I wish to be able to pay through the one click option so that I do not waste time filling out card details. Now things are dead clear, right? Now things are dead clear. It's not vague. In the previous one, you would have to write at least some supporting description, or else I'm 100% sure the developers and testers would come back to you saying that, okay, which customer are you talking about? When do you want to enable this? They will always have questions coming back to you. So user stories is one of the most important artifact that you'll be creating on a day-to-day basis, and getting a good practice of writing investable user stories is a must-have for every product manager. You might end up in a small startup where they will not be so pedantic, but in a larger company, there's a good chance that your developers and other people will not be very happy if you cannot write good user stories. So writing good user stories is pretty much the start point of anything. Even if even if your development environment doesn't require stories, they would at least expect tasks, clear tasks that can be put up on Jira, for example. Jira is a bug management, product management, sorry, not product management, but project management tool by Atlassian, one of the most popular tools for that. So even if the developers do not, even if the developers are not asking for user stories and other people are not asking for user stories, but you having written user stories, it will be much easier for you to actually create tasks out of it, and you can have a good night's sleep knowing that you have not left out any important detail or any important user story um, when you were assigning the tasks on Jira. Okay, so that's the power of writing good user stories, and I will suggest that you start practicing it as soon as possible. That's it for now. Thank you.